Let's get it on then, shall we? Mwah. Welcome to Sex on the Peach, your weekly hump day dose of everyone's favourite untalked about topic, sex. Let's get honest, let's get open, let's get comfortable, and let's get in to this week's show. Friends, lovers, listeners, happy Wednesday, happy hump day, and happy Sex on the Peach day. Now, today we have a conversation that's a little bit different. My gorgeous friend Kelly Michelle Gray recently took part in a reality TV dating show called Love Triangle, which was on Channel 4, E4. And if you haven't seen it already, you can catch up with it on 4OD. All of the episodes are uploaded now. So if you feel like a binge session, it is there for you to do that. Now, I think that reality TV, especially in the dating space, can prove to be a bit problematic. It has permeated the landscape of dating and sort of informs the way that people feel they can behave in the outside dating world, because there's a lot of behavior on reality TV that gets normalised or perpetuated as acceptable. So I think it's really interesting to have a conversation about what really goes on behind the scenes of these reality TV shows, which we don't often get the chance to do. And I even saw some mildly problematic things in Love Triangle, which I discussed with Kelly in our conversation today. But one thing that really stuck out for me at one point was one of the female contestants saying, "No decent woman would ever want an open relationship." And that's now something that is out there in public on a Channel 4 program for anyone to tune in and watch. And so for any of my females, my fellow vulva owners, any of you out there who want an open relationship, I am here to tell you, you are decent. And don't let a single statement on a TV show, on a dating show, shame you or make you feel any different. And shame is one of the things that we mostly look into today, because this is what it is creating. And when I was speaking to Kelly about her experience on the show, and one of the reasons I wanted to have this conversation today was the fact that because of a sexual encounter that happened on the TV show, Kelly has been exposed to a lot of backlash, and the penis owner involved has not. And it was very sad to me to see that we still have so far left to go. So whether you are into reality TV or not, I hope that you can keep an open mind during this conversation and hear what it's like to be on that side of things, and also to recognize the double standards are still double standarding. So let's get into this conversation for today. Here is Still Called a Whore in 2024. Thank you so much for joining me on Sex on the Peach today. I'm so excited to have you.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here. Like, I love you. I love your podcast. And when you were like, come on, I was like, yes, you don't have to ask me twice. I'm already here. I'm ready.
Well, I don't watch much reality TV. So when I saw that you were on Love Triangle, I was like, I obviously want to watch it to support you, because it's something I might not normally have picked up on. But I think so many people are watching reality TV these days, and it's rare to get real insights into what it's really like behind those scenes. So I'm very grateful that you can come here and do that today.
I'm grateful that you're allowing me the freedom to do that. I was the same though, I don't watch reality TV. I've never watched a single episode of Love Island, nothing. And with this, they approached me, and at the time there was like no work. It was, just after COVID, and I was like, I'm not working, I'm not doing anything. And I thought about it for a while, and then I thought, do you know what? I might as well, like, let's give it a go. And you went through so many tests and like meeting psychiatrists and matchmakers, doing testing, all that sort of stuff. And then they got back to me and they were like, oh my God, we're so excited. We have found you this match.
Mm-hmm.
And what they said to us, and they said this to everyone, was that it was called Love Match.
Okay.
And it was going to be a wholesome show about how flippant society is. You know, we go on one date with someone, we might not like the way they eat bread, right?
Sure.
And we go see them again, and we don't give them a chance. And this was all about going on a date with someone. You might not completely match, but what happens if you then move in with them for 4 to 5 weeks?
Yeah.
They said there'll be, you know, fun twists and turns. Fun. I'd love to know what their idea of hell is. And it was going to be wholesome. So I thought, well, that sounds up my street. I'll give that a go. And wholesome it was not.
Yeah.
Love match it was not. I did not know there was any form of triangle, 3 people involved, any competing. I was not in for that. So it was all a big surprise for me. And yeah, that's how that came about.
I was going to say, because the love match idea would make sense and what they had set up, because we are definitely a society that's become kind of obsessed with icks and how quickly they can be a turn off for people. So I would say that on its own sounds like a decent concept that would make sense. But when I've seen comments on your social media of people being like, why were you surprised when there was another person? And as I've said to you, there was that meme that used to go around saying, imagine being in a show called X on the Beach and then being surprised when your ex turns up on the beach. And I'm like, I don't think anyone goes on what they think is going to be X on the beach.
Absolutely not. And I have found out, because I always wondered that as well, you know, being so stupid. But like, I've spoken to people that were on X on the Beach and they were like, we had no idea. We thought we were going on something completely different, something new. And suddenly their half naked ex just comes out the sea and they were like, oh, here we go. This is what we signed up for, is it? And I've heard it so many times. Well, you knew what you signed up for. No, I didn't, actually. Let me show you my contract.
Yeah.
But, you know, it wouldn't have made good TV, I guess. And they cover themselves by saying things like it's a working title, twists and turns and stuff like that. And they wanted to make good TV. And they did. And if it had been all glitter and rainbows, it would have been nice. Sure. Would have been invested in it? Probably not. So I get it, you know, I do get it. And looking back, I think I was just a bit too naive.
And were you sort of motivated to go on it, to go and actually meet someone?
Yeah, because I have struggled, honestly, Peach. Like, I have been on so many dates, countless amounts, and it just gets so monotonous and it's so the same conversation, and then the same thing happens. You either go out with someone, you don't find the chemistry, that's it, waste of an evening, or you think you found a connection with someone and then they ghost you, or it turns out they've got a wife, or it turns out they're not interested in you, you know. And I wasn't finding anything organic because of the dating apps now. You can't get that. So I thought, well, what better way than I'm being matched by experts who know what I want.
We love experts.
Right? And I'm hoping, are going to find me someone that's good for my soul and has my loyalties and my morals and, you know, my non-negotiables, everything that I'm looking for. And hopefully I've got the same with him. And I'm going to give this 100% of my time. Like, even if I don't fancy him, which I didn't think I would, because I haven't found that connection with someone for such a long time where I've met them and gone, oh my God, butterflies, you know?
Yeah.
I don't get that anymore. I don't know whether it's the cynical side of me, but for some reason I went into this, and as soon as I met him, I got those butterflies, and that was really different for me.
Sure.
But then I don't know whether it was the pressure of hearing from all these people that this is your partner. This is your man.
And whether that gets into your head and sort of is in your subconscious. I mean, for anyone who hasn't seen the TV show, Kelly was matched with a man called Mike, and as soon as he walked on the screen, he made me think of my ex-husband. So he was an immediate red flag for me.
Oh my God. Peach was literally covered in all the red flags.
Not to tarnish all very tall, slightly greying American men.
He was Canadian, but
oh gosh, he was Canadian, you're right. They sounded incredibly similar. I was like, well, if she ends up happily ever after with this man, I'll be putting a smile on my face and pretending all is well and that it's not giving me flashbacks.
Feel like this isn't going to end well. Run, Kelly, run.
If you wouldn't mind telling the listeners how it did end, because also we only see a small snippet of the experience, you know, but that was your life.
Very tiny snippets.
When you're there 24 hours a day.
Yeah, we moved in together and we spent 10 days together.
Mm-hmm.
So just me and him, no one else apart from the crew, and he had one member of welfare. And then I don't want to give many spoilers away, but I'm going to. 6 of us got moved out of our pairs while another person moved in with our partner for like 6 days. And then we came back into the experiment and were moved back into the house with the 2 of them for another 7 days.
And you were all living together.
The 3 of us had to live together. Now, if you're dating someone and you find out that they're seeing someone else, you delete and block. You certainly don't move in with the both of them.
You don't, no. Unless a throuple is your thing, you know, no judgment there. But, you know, it's not for everyone.
No. And I would like to have a choice, you know.
Yeah.
He then has to make a decision at the end of it. Now, the first 10 days, me and him got a very strong connection, or so I thought anyway. We were talking about what happens when we leave. We were talking about family. We were talking about everything. We were both on that same wavelength. So we built a connection very quickly. And when we got told that she was coming into this, he was just like, you've got nothing to worry about, nothing, because this is what I want. And I remember saying to him before we left, and it was off camera, I was like, right, how do I play this? And he said, well, what do you mean? I was like, do I leave here thinking you're going to go into this situation with an open heart and give her a go? Or do I leave here knowing that me and you have got this and I don't need to worry? And he went, no, that's what I want. And I asked him straight out, like, just give me an honest answer. Do I, you know, so that I can protect myself? And he told me, we've got this. And literally as soon as I left and she moved in, first thing he's saying to her is, don't worry about Kelly. I want to give you a really good shot. And then when I came back into it, those 2 had got this special connection. And then in the end of it, when he has to pick, even though they had both sat there and told me they were just friends, there was nothing between them, there was no chemistry, picked her. And they ran off into the sunset together. And so it was a real head fuck. I know a lot of people are like, well, how did you fall for him so quickly? Like, you were literally there overnight. I was like, it wasn't. It was 10 days.
Very intense days.
Very intense. Your world is taken away from you. So you can't contact home. You can't speak to your friends. You can't speak to your family. Your phone's taken away from you. The only person you have is him.
Gosh.
So that's the only person you talk to.
That's your sole focus.
So you do become very close very quickly. And it's like 6 weeks of dating in one day.
Yeah. I mean, listen, in the theatre industry, we all know what it's like. That's why they call them showmances. You know, you meet someone on a tour, on a ship, anything that is like a high pressure environment time-wise. So you know, you're spending a lot of time with that person, you're spending a lot of energy with that person. All of those environments create such a fast-paced intensity that you don't have when you are in any normal dating situation. So, you know, I have been in many an experience where that has been the case. And that's just when you're going to work with that person every day in a sort of closed environment, but there's still loads of other people around. You know, I could still go home and see my friends at any time. So let alone being shut off from the rest of the world with one person and your sole focus being on them. That's just so intense. I mean, how were those 10 days?
We were so close. We were very intimate. We were just all over each other. It was like we had been together for years. And I remember one of the other couples saying it. They were like, you 2 are like a married couple. You're just so in tune with each other. And that's how it felt. It was natural. And it was weird that it was that natural that quickly.
Yeah. And let's talk, obviously, it's a sex podcast. Let's talk about that fact, because you've had
Oh.
a lot of backlash over the fact that the two of you were physically intimate. And that's been a bit of a bone of contention for all of us, actually.
It hurts my head to try and make sense of it, because we are not living in the 1950s.
We're certainly not.
And yet there's so many people out there with that same mindset. And they're all women.
Right, okay.
And I've been keeping an eye, right?
Yeah, of course.
Not a single man has mentioned it. It's all been women. And they have all been saying the same thing. I've been called a whore. I've been told you should have kept your legs together. It's because you slept with him so quickly that he ran. It's because you had sex with him that he left you for another woman. And what I can't understand is why we are still putting the emphasis on the woman, why we are still blaming the woman. Because if you are with someone and you have sex with them and everything's great and then they just up and leave, surely we should be teaching them better ways to handle humans, not the other way around. At the same time, I chose to sleep with him because we slept together. We're two consenting adults.
Yeah, absolutely.
So why is it not okay for women to enjoy themselves and to get pleasure out of it? It's like women are only allowed to have sex to make babies, and that's it. But men, they can go and have their end away, and it's great. And I just don't get it. There was one woman, and she was vile about me having slept with him. And I looked on her profile on, I think it was Instagram or something, and she is a counsellor for teenage girls in a school.
My gosh.
What is she teaching these girls? That's what I want to know. And one, to go on to someone you don't know's Instagram and annihilate them anyway is one you shouldn't be doing. But two, on a subject like that, my mind was blown.
That's devastating to hear, if I'm honest. Like, I hate to hear that and think, obviously, because I'm so desperate for there to be sex positive education. It's one of the things that I am fighting the most for at the moment. I can only really give that to adults via social media, via this podcast, because I did all of my accreditations in sex education and I still have to adhere to this curriculum, which is still very centuries old biased. So I don't want to teach that, but I sort of am always going to fight for there to be more sex positive education and for people to know what they are doing in the right way, to teach people consent, but also to teach people that pleasure is okay. Like that's an okay thing for you to have. So that's absolutely harrowing to hear that someone who would speak to another woman like that is having any kind of influence over teenage women, because shame is one of the greatest killers of pleasure. It's one of the reasons that most people are not having the best sex that they can, because we have shame or we have guilt, and I don't even know where that guilt comes from. Why are we feeling guilty? Why?
I honestly don't know. But she made me feel guilt. I felt guilty for it, and nothing else was brought up. But other than the fact that I slept with him, nothing about his flippant emotions.
I was going to say, what about the fact that he treated you kind of like shit?
Right? None of that was brought up. Just the fact that I slept with him, that was the issue. And I probably didn't do myself any favours, because there was one scene where I had a conversation with the other girl, and we'd been in the kitchen for hours talking, but obviously they took a tiny little snippet.
Of course.
Had I have known what was going to happen, I would never have slept with him. Now, the context within this, because obviously they picked up on that.
Sure.
And they made me out to be sly, that I was saying it to her, to warn her off or pee all over him, whatever, I don't know. And then two, because I'd obviously said, why am I being blamed for the sex? And it's like, well, you said you wouldn't have slept with him. What the context of that is I felt that he was having his cake and eating it. That's why I would not have had sex with him had I have known he was going to be so flippant with everything. I enjoyed the sex. I don't regret the sex.
Sure.
I loved it. I'm glad I did it, even though he left someone else. But in that moment, I was so angry.
And also, you know, you'd been vulnerable. And I think it's a thing of being like, I've given you this part of me and you've kind of thrown it back in my face. You know,
Yeah.
it comes from a place of that, which I think is completely fine. And I certainly live for honesty and transparency and communication. So I don't think it's problematic that it was mentioned to this other person that you had sex. Because why? Because then once again, we're making sex the thing that is shameful, when like the problem realistically, well, I mean, it was the setup of the show, so I guess it was always going to go this way. But it's the intimacy that is hurtful. It's not just the physical act of sex that's the problem.
Exactly that. Because it wasn't the sex that made me want to be with him. It was the intimate chats we had late at night.
Yeah.
It was everything else. It was the time we spent together.
Yeah.
But people just jump. And they're like, oh, women's fault. Of course it is. You know, as soon as a man has sex with you, he's off. But why is that okay? Why are we still saying that's okay then? Like, I don't get it. Why you're blaming me?
We still very unfortunately live in a society where sex is made the shameful thing and sex is still used to shame women. And what I will say is I lost my virginity at 15 years old and I've always been, I don't mind saying it, pretty promiscuous. I own that. There's not a part of me that feels ashamed. Everyone knows at this point, there's not a part of me that feels ashamed of it. I certainly don't feel sex shame. I don't feel sex guilt. I don't feel any of those things at this point and at this age. I guess I own my right to pleasure completely, and that is whether I'm going to sleep with one person forever or one person every fucking day, and it's no one's business what I do with my time or my body. However, at 15 years old I'd lost my virginity and I was like, I think I kind of like this stuff. I think I kind of enjoy this. I don't feel like I'm doing it for the sake of it. I think I like fooling around. You know, I got given my first vibrator for my 16th birthday. I literally went home that night, had my first orgasm, and I was like, oh, I like that. That feels great. So I'm going to keep going with this sex thing. Yeah. And this was in a time of like all of the rappers were giving it. If a man does it, he's a player. If a woman does it, she's a whore. Like that was peak lyric at that time. So I really lived in that era where even at the time I lost my virginity and I was a late teen, I was getting that kind of backlash. And, you know, we are however many years on now. How can we still be here?
I don't know. Because even when we filmed it, that was the last thought I had. I was like, that never even entered my head that I'd get backlash for that. I thought he would for doing what he did and then leaving. But instead I got it for having sex with him. And I didn't think that would be a thing.
And also you weren't to know whether they had, if that was public knowledge, would he get backlash for being that way with two women? No, people probably give him a high five and be like, well done, mate.
Smashed it. Go on, bro.
Yeah. And it's
ridiculous.
How are we still living with such an archaic attitude? And that's one thing that if I could do, I would love to impart on all women, all vulva owners, to just give a huge fucking middle finger to all of it, because honestly, fuck them.
Exactly.
I'd love to be more eloquent about it, but I can't. It makes me so angry because why is there still a pleasure disparity? And that's what it is. You know, it's literal pleasure inequality. You're saying it's okay for one gender to get pleasure and it's not okay for the other one. And what the fuck is that about?
I'm not being funny, but why were we given a clit? If we weren't meant to enjoy life?
The clitoris is the only part on a biological body that its only purpose is pleasure. It doesn't have any other purpose. There's no other part of a body that does that. That is its only purpose. Why have we taken a little button and given it 8 to 10,000 nerve endings to then be like, don't use it though?
Not allowed to use it because it makes you a whore. Not allowed to do that. Sorry. No, only for the boys. They can play with it as much as they want. But
it's like they say the daddy long legs, right? Aren't they supposed to be like the most poisonous insect? But they can't distribute the poison.
No.
Like, why are you giving us the magic button and then saying, but don't use it?
I know, we're not daddy long legs, so fuck off.
I'm like, sorry, honey, we're going to be using it. As I
Right?
keep saying on my social media at the minute, sketty summer is only just beginning.
I need that on a t-shirt.
Well, I am actually making merch sometime soon. So
I want that. I want
sketty
that.
summer, yeah, I think that's definitely going to have to be one that's on there, to the point where I was up for a job and I did say to my agent, this is really going to interfere with sketty summer.
That's absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
It's just like, I'm so sorry to hinder
Sorry.
your
Get
sexual
off.
adventures. How do you feel about the way that you were portrayed on the show? Do you feel like it was accurate? Because you became known, I guess, it seems, for being emotional, which I am all here for, because why are we telling women that they can't be fucking emotional? Why do we have a problem with tears? Why do we shame crying? It's just a physical outlet of an emotion. Again, I don't get it. As a society, we're all so afraid of crying, and I don't really understand why.
Yeah.
But obviously, you've gotten a bit of stick for that, very unfairly, hate it.
Yeah.
But I guess off the back of that, do you feel that you were portrayed accurately, or do you think they found that part and they lent into it to make you look more emotional than you maybe were?
I honestly think it was a fair edit, because I spent 80% of my time crying. Now,
I hate that for you, that you were that sad.
I'm the girl that people come to for funny stories. I'm, constantly laughing and the entertainer. And my dad watched the show and he was like, I haven't seen my daughter. This isn't who I know. But at the same time, yeah, I was like that. I was crying. The first week, I was fine.
Mm-hmm.
Myself, and you see that. But because it's only short snippets, you don't really get to see enough of it.
Yeah.
But their whole job as producers was to find my insecurities and to find those storylines where they could really get in there. And everyone has their own narrative, and you don't know what that is until they start digging. And mine obviously was the emotional, vulnerable woman.
Yeah.
The needy, desperate one, which I'm neither of, by the way. I'm independent and I know what I want and I know what I don't want. So I'm not going to settle.
Mm-hmm.
But I get the narrative. I get where they went with it. Was that me? No. Was it me at the time? Yes.
Yeah.
So I think it was a fair enough edit. I did.
Okay.
I cried a lot. But there was a few times where they used voice bites of me crying, and then they would use the same one in the next episode.
Oh.
And I was like, I wasn't crying there, though. There was a few little bits like that where it's like, I wasn't actually crying there, but we'll take it, But yeah, I did get a lot of stick. And you know what's funny about that as well is I got a lot of stick for crying. But then my friend Matt, who I love, who was on the show, he was vulnerable and everyone praised him.
Again, gender disparity.
Yeah, and I'm all for men being vulnerable and emotional. I think that's a wonderful, wonderful thing. But yet we are still going, she's psycho because she's getting vulnerable and crying. What an absolute legend he is, though.
Because we don't see it, I guess, from men and penis owners as often. So I think it's welcomed, I suppose. But I agree, there shouldn't be any difference. Like, that is another infuriating thing to come out of it, because I would like to think as well, when you are in a public space, especially, I think as a society, we've become a bit obsessed with the whole chill girl.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So I think that we've become obsessed with people having to be chill, having to be okay with being casual. And listen, I am very casual in my approach to dating. I like casual dating. I like casual hookups. But I'm not chill. I'm not a chill girl. I'm a bit of a fucking nightmare, to be honest, which I own.
Yeah.
But I think we've become so obsessed with people having to be chill. And I'm like, is it chill, or is it just like void of fucking personality and void of emotion?
It's robotic, like every other aspect of life now. Everything is so cut off. We swipe with everything. Everything.
Yeah.
You don't.
We've become so desensitized to so much. And I don't want that. I want people to feel like, I want people to feel deeply. Just because my approach to dating and sex is casual doesn't mean I don't feel anything, you know, like I'm invested. I just am invested for like then, and then I'm invested in someone else, whatever we move. But I thought it would have been appreciated that someone was like, this woman is willing to go on TV, put herself out there and own feeling.
Yeah.
And own being emotional. And because that's okay. If you're going to be with someone, I want people to feel, and this is quite often when people come out of relationships and it's kind of been a bit of a shit breakup, sometimes I'm like, the positive thing to take from it is us still knowing that we can feel and that we can love, because I do think we live in a world where it's so easy to put up our walls. There's so much fake shit on social media that you kind of become so separated from reality, and we start putting up our walls. We become guarded because, God forbid, we let ourselves be vulnerable and let ourselves be hurt. And sometimes I think there is a positive to be taken from being hurt, because we know that we still have that capacity to love and to feel.
I am so shocked at some of the backlash I've got. Yeah, I'm not a perfect human. I'm flawed.
There's no such thing.
And was I too emotional? Maybe. But what is too emotional? Like, I put my heart in it. I was in there 150%. You know, I got hurt and it all got shown on TV. And I think if anyone was really honest about how they would be in that situation, they'd probably be as hurt as well.
Yeah.
We have a very deep connection. That was both of us, not just one of us. The only difference is he managed to have a connection with someone else as well.
Yeah.
So he's not going to get all emotional and sad because he's, you know what, I've got 2 women to choose from. You know, brilliant. I've got connection with both of them.
I'd be a fucking nightmare on a program like that. I'd be like, wait, love triangle, but what about maybe me love hexagon?
Everything, just all of the sides.
I think it's nice to see someone feel and allow themselves to be authentic and not be like, there's cameras, I can't cry, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's such a good thing. And I hate that most of the nonsense comes from other women. Yes, because I'm like, where is the empathy? Where is the compassion? Even if that's not how you navigate a relationship, even if you are someone who chooses not to cry, you're not naturally inclined to cry, I just don't understand how you can look at someone in pain and be like, get a grip. We all just deal with hurt differently.
But I can guarantee these same people are the people that were on the be kind wagon, positive vibes only. All right, do you want to try spreading some of that to other people that you don't know instead of all the hate?
Yeah.
One girl was, you know, really religious. She was about God. And I thought, I wanted to say to her, how would your God feel about what you're saying to people on the internet?
Yeah.
Because, you know, I'm not religious, but I assume that any godly figure, whatever you believe in, doesn't preach, go and hate on everyone else.
No. Absolutely not. That's the thing with the way social media works. You know, we do open ourselves up to people to say what they want to say. And I'm not someone who is on the, if you've got nothing nice to say, don't say anything at all wagon. I think that's such a weird thing that we were taught when we were growing up, because it's unrealistic. And I think it just created an epidemic of people pleasers. And that's a problem in its own right. But there are so many things that I'm like, when you write that out, do you not think before you press send, do I really need to say this?
Right.
Does it contribute?
If you want to say, come at me and say, do you think if you'd done it this way that would have been different? Or how did you feel in this time? Because I'm just really interested to know.
Yes.
I'm happy to have a conversation and a discussion or even a debate. But what I don't like is being attacked by people.
Yeah.
Who think that their opinion is up here. The worst thing for me is I'm just being honest. No, you're not. You're not just being honest. You are having your opinion.
Well, people love to state their opinion as fact, but that's very much a them problem. But actually saying that, one of the questions that someone had sent in, because we're just sort of, some of the things have already been answered, so we don't need to ask them. Someone actually did write in. They said, "Hi, Kelly, loved you on the show." I don't know. These are anonymous, so I don't know who sent it in, but whoever sent it in, there we go. "Hi, Kelly, loved you on the show. Looking back, is there anything you would have done differently regarding your approach on the show?"
Do you know, part of me wishes I'd gone in with my walls intact a bit more.
Sure.
But then I wouldn't have had the same journey. And
Yeah.
actually, I came out of it a totally different person, but for the good reasons. I came out so much stronger. And all those years of healing that I was trying to do beforehand, all I had to do was go on a reality show into like a frigging triangle, because it really did make me open my eyes to a lot of things, and mainly my self-worth. And so if I'd have gone in with my walls up, I probably wouldn't have had the same journey. So
Sure.
actually, I'm not sure now that I would have done anything different.
Someone else has said, how do you handle any public reactions or judgments about your behavior on the show? Because obviously we've been speaking about what that's been like. You know, how, I guess, have you handled it? Do you just shut it off? Do you engage with it?
Before the show came out, we had meetings with, Channel 4 and stuff, talking about trolling and how to handle different things. And I was like, I'll be fine. I'll be fine. Like, they don't bother me. They're just keyboard warriors. But actually, really affected me in a
Right.
bad way. I was getting really anxious. And the thought of, like, I'd go on my phone, I'd have like 170 notifications, and I knew that they were just all trolls. So in the end, my sister, bless her, was like, I'm taking your phone off you. She would then forward me any nice messages, any nice comments. She'd send me them in a text every day. But that way I didn't have to see the negativity, because it's really difficult to sit there and watch these people calling you a psycho and, saying, oh God, good escape for Mike on that one. Like, it's really tough to
Yeah.
read stuff like that. So yeah, it does start getting to you. So she took over, and that was it, really. That's how I dealt with it, not to read it.
Has it calmed down now that we're sort of past?
Yeah. I still get the occasional, I think it was a couple of days ago, there was a load of abuse suddenly came up from a video I'd done. But it's funny because I've now got the people that have watched it and liked me are now arguing with the trolls.
Yeah.
So it has calmed down in that way. I mean, it's funny because I was out in, where was I, Manchester or somewhere, and this woman came up to me. She went, recognise you as soon as you walked in, but you're psycho, you are.
Oh,
I was like, sorry? She's like, yeah, you're psycho. I told my friends, you're absolute nutter.
that's interesting, because I think my theory is that anything that people would say when they're sat behind their phones or their laptops typing those little comments on social media is they'd never say it if they bumped into them in person. But apparently I'm wrong.
She was more than happy to come up to me and say that. But that's been the only thing that's been said to me in person, that's bad.
Well, someone else has sent in saying, Kelly, you've been very kind about everyone on your social media, but what was it really like living with Mike and Danielle?
It was really hard. It was just very awkward, and it was quite a toxic atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
The last night we had this big, like, drunken fiesta, the three of us and our crew, and that was brilliant. And we were dancing all night, and it was so much fun. But it was a toxic atmosphere. It was never going to. It was never going to be nice.
If Mike had picked you, is that something that you would have wanted to maybe give a go?
I had like my head saying to me, run the fuck away now.
Yeah.
And my heart going, oh, but remember those first 10 days? The morning of the picking bit.
It's awful. It's an awful concept.
I know, isn't it? God.
It's just brutal.
Oh, why did I do this? I should have.
You weren't to know, babe. You weren't to know.
Oh, no, that morning I sat there and I was like, right, imagine he picks you and imagine he doesn't pick you. What are you going to say? And all I could hear in my head was my sister going, if you fucking go off with him, I am going to kick your ass, because I know she would have watched this and seen everything and been like, no, you are not an option. You are a first choice. So I knew, as hard as it was going to be, if he was to pick me, I would have had to have walked away.
Right.
But because he'd been in my room kissing me like 2 nights before, my heart was then like, oh my goodness, like what? But I really, truly meant it when I said I couldn't have said yes. Because it would have gone against everything I believe in about women being empowered, not settling. I spent my life saying that. So if I have stood there and gone, oh, okay, You went off with someone when you told me you wouldn't, and then you like played us around for the past week. Oh yeah, of course, let's run off into the sunset together.
I will say, I mean, the whole concept of the show is honestly kind of my worst nightmare. I know that it went both ways. Sometimes it was a woman picking from two men or whatever, because historically women have been pit against each other. And I've always hated that because I refuse to see other women as my competition or I just refuse because I love women so much and I just refuse, but society is desperate to pit us against each other. And once again, it's because it gives the power back to the men. We basically give them the control to then decide. I hate that. So the fact that that was the concept here in 2024 and someone is going to pit two people almost in sort of a Hunger Games fucking competition and then pit from two people, I do think it's a little sadistic. Like, I'm a little disappointed that we are still creating shows like this in the name of entertainment, because we shouldn't really be endorsing the behavior that we fight against another person for someone's love, for someone's attention. I feel like it perpetuates it being okay when people behave like that in life, that it's okay to have multiple people like fighting over you. And that's not like a decent and respectful way to handle yourself in the dating world. You know, really, I guess to be fair, it's more transparent than some people might be in life because it had to be once you all found out. But for someone who everything is honesty and transparency, you know, I don't like that it might make people think it's okay for me to be on these apps and have all these people lined up and have them vie for my attention. And then I'm in control to then go, I choose you. Like, it just feels so, it feels so gross.
It's everything I run away from.
I mean, you and I have obviously spoken outside of right now. As you said to me, it played on what your insecurities were from previous relationships.
Absolute triggers. Yeah. My all of my exes have cheated on me. I've said that on the show. My last one in particular really did make me compete with other women in front of me. Like, he would, you know, it would literally be like a game for him. So that is a situation that I try not to be in. I choose not to be in. And if I'm ever dating someone who makes me feel like there is someone else in the picture, I will take myself away.
Yeah.
Because I'm not competing and I'm not fighting with anyone. So this was just not for me. Yeah, it was my life.
Did they take care of your mental health through and after the process?
That is one thing I will really give Channel 4 and E4 and Worker Bee Productions. We had a member of welfare with us throughout the whole thing, living with us. And I got so attached to my welfare. She came everywhere with me and she never left my side. And even when she was supposed to have a day off and they were like, you have to have a day off. And she was like, no, I'm all right, staying with Kel. You know, she was just there for me the whole time. And in fact, there was times where it was a real struggle with our particular triangle that they sent two of the heads of welfare from London up to Manchester, and they were with us as well. And then after the show, we had the psychiatrist, lovely lady, who was on hand with us for a whole year. So I had my last session with her a couple of days ago, and she still said to me, you've got my number. If you need anything, you call me. They've been fantastic. And in fact, I think it was the episode where Danica and Amy yell at me across the dinner table about my age. And my welfare guy rang me that day and he said, listen, I want you to speak to the psychiatrist before and after this episode tonight, because he knew what was coming. And he was like, I think you need to speak to her. And that's how hot they were on it. So they've been brilliant.
I have always been, I think, especially after some of the tragedies that have come out of the back of Love Island, my main concern is, are people being taken care of? So I'm glad to hear that they prioritized your mental health and allowed you, I guess, to come out of the other side of what is a traumatic process as healthy in mind as you can, I guess.
Like I said, I've learned so much from the show, but it wasn't an automatic thing. I didn't come out of the show and be like, oh, I'm a whole new woman and I feel fantastic. It was only after the work I've done since that has made me feel strong now and has
Yeah.
put me up so high above who I even was before the show.
Yeah.
So it's been the work since that's needed to happen, because I think everyone left that show and felt like they'd been hit by a truck. You know, we didn't know what we'd just been through, what we'd just done. And everyone needed that extra help, and we all got it.
How did you feel watching it back?
I was so nervous watching it, but it was closure for me. Because there was still some things, there's a lot of things I didn't know about, that I didn't hear, that I didn't see. And I think for me, seeing it was clarity. And that's what I needed. So it was just like the little cherry on the cake. You know, I've worked on myself, and now let's see what actually happened, shall we? And then that was it for me. And I was good, and it didn't take me back at all. It actually just made me go, yeah, brilliant. And, you know, I've looked at some of my clothes and I know which ones to keep and what to throw away. And, you know, it's all good.
Priorities.
Yeah.
Someone has sent in saying, is there another contestant you wish you could have been paired with or that you had a connection with?
No, I mean, I'm very good friends with a couple of the guys, but that's as far as it goes. I know some people have asked, like, oh, what's going on with you and Matt? What's going on with you and Lloyd? But we are genuinely such good friends.
Besties.
But I think they got my match right. What Mike was telling me he wanted at that time was what I wanted, and we didn't seem to align. So they got my match right at the first 10 days anyway. I don't know who he was after.
At the beginning, it did look that way. Obviously, I had my personal bias reservations, but it did look that way.
No, it was great to begin with. It was great. The chemistry was fantastic, and I felt beautiful. I felt secure. I felt confident. Oh, how quickly that all came crashing down.
Obviously, your age, which, I mean, you're still really fucking young, but I guess you were the oldest woman on the show.
Yeah.
That was brought up a couple of times. And I think there's really nothing worse than using a woman's age against them, because if we're lucky, we'll all be aging. You know,
Right.
it's a gift.
Yeah.
But how did that feel? Because I think that's fucking bullshit. That's another thing that I hate about society, is it makes women feel worthless the older they get, and men are sort of presumed to just get better and better, and women are just meant to be like on the shelf. On the show, how did that make you feel? And also in the dating landscape, I guess.
I mean, I've got friends at my age that don't want babies. I have always wanted babies.
Sure.
But science can go against us. When we get to a certain age, it's just a fact. And unfortunately, there's nothing we can do. There's nothing that we can believe more in for that not to be a factor.
Yeah.
And so the older that you get, I feel as a woman, it does get harder with dating. And then the pressure becomes more as well. And you're like, oh my God, well, if I meet someone now, I've got back a year. And then how long have I got to get pregnant? That means I can only have one baby. That means and you start doing these timelines in your head.
Yeah.
You do put the pressure on yourself, but at the same time, I've always been someone that's wanted the whole package. I've never just wanted the baby. So having the partnership and that to go with it. But when I go on dates, I do make sure that they are aligned with me. So, okay, do you want children? And if they say no, okay, this is great, but that's not how I see my future going, you know.
Sure.
Because you have to have that conversation at this age. If I was in my early 20s, it'd be the last thing I'd be asking. But at my age now, I have to be honest about what I want. So obviously, me and Mike have those conversations because he's 41, 42. He wants that as well. You know, and all the other girls in it, well, the ones that were going at me were 30.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like they really understood my argument. Because I remember sitting there going, you just don't get this. You're not getting it. Because she was like, yeah, some of my mates have had babies at 16. I'm like, yeah, but that's got nothing to do with my argument.
It's got literally nothing to do with anything.
And it was so irrelevant. She's too busy yelling over the top of people to actually listen. And when she was like, your age is jarring me. How is my age jarring you? How is that affecting you? Like, yes, it is harder for me. I've got 8 years on you, which means my biological clock is well ahead of yours. I'm still single, and that's not where I personally wanted to be. And so, yeah, I am looking for a partner to have those with, and I have to have those conversations. But it really hurt that attack came from two women, because
Yeah.
I'm thinking, I really hope and I pray for you guys that you don't get to an age where you start feeling the pressure, because that conversation is going to come back to bite you on the arse. In that moment, I just remember the pit of my stomach wanting to fall through my arse, because I was so devastated at what was coming at me. It was like throwing insecurities into my face. Like, oh, she's already upset. She's come back into this. Her man's gone off with someone else who's 10 years younger as well. Let's just go at her even more. And I just had to get up, walk away from the situation, because old Kelly would have been throwing things across the table. But I had to get up, walk away, and just burst into tears, because I had two women attacking me for something that, one, I can't change.
It's out of all of our control. We're all going to get older if
Yeah.
well, we hope we are anyway.
And, and I just could not believe what I was listening to. The
Mm.
only thing I will say is the support from around the table was absolutely phenomenal, including Danielle sticking up for me as well, because you just don't do that.
I think what's been very sad in this conversation that we've had today is the negativity and backlash about having sex, being emotional, aging, all things that we all do. And it's all coming from other women.
It's really sad. We should be empowering each other. We should be lifting each other up. I don't understand where this hatred comes from.
We really need to be lifting each other up, because, I try not to generalize. And my entire ethos with this podcast is I need everyone to work together, whatever gender you are, whatever identity you are, across the board, no matter what your situation is. We actually all need to work together to make things better. But when there is still the desire for a patriarchal society, and there's still definitely is that like hanging over our heads. So there are still a lot of men ready to tear women down, because most of my backlash for the podcast is from men. But
I feel like that's an insecurity thing, isn't it? That comes from like a real deep, dark place of insecurity, because you're this independent woman who knows who she is and knows what she wants, and they don't know how to handle that.
If we aren't empowering each other, if we aren't lifting each other up, it does give the men and the penis owners who still do want that patriarchal society more opportunity to also tear us down, because it's harder to do that if we all unite.
Life's hard enough, Peach, right? Why would you want to make it harder for someone? And for yourself as well. Like, carrying around that hate must hurt.
And I know that we all have to adopt the mentality a lot of the time of, when someone is projecting certain behaviors, it's more a reflection on them. Don't take it personally. It's their insecurity, and it's displaced anger or hurt or something else, and that's coming back on us. And we need to keep that in mind and try not to take things too personally because of that. But it's exhausting.
So exhausting. I mean,
it's exhausting constantly dealing with other people's shit.
And I remember one of the producers saying, there's something happened with you and Danica. Like, why is she like this with you? And I was like, genuinely, I don't know. That kind of takes you back to primary school times, where you've got a group of girls or whatever, and they're like, oh, I don't like her. Why? I don't know. I just don't like her. It's like a mean girl thing, but it comes back to what you were saying about it's a reflection off of them.
I just think as well, reality TV has really seeped into our lives, and it's just such a huge part of existence now that I do worry that there's so much unhealthy behavior that is exposed on them, which I know is done in the name of entertainment. But why do we find that entertaining? Because there's a level of such exploitation of people. And I do just worry that it perpetuates such harmful behavior that seeps into the dating lives of people who watch them and really immerse themselves in them. Things like Love Island, I don't watch it. I haven't watched it. But the things that I hear coming off the back of that, and then we wonder why, as a society, people are treating people they date like they are disposable. And I'm like, because we have literal prime time TV shows that millions of people are buying into, promoting that.
Yeah.
Promoting that it's okay to just go like, I'm really into and build connections and then just be on. And I am here for human behavior. Like I understand a lot of the time people are not in the right emotional headspace for monogamy, especially when we are younger. Our heads can be turned.
Yeah.
It's exciting. Our hormones are fucking nuts. Like we've got literal chemicals like just absolutely pulsing through our bodies, driving us nuts. Yeah, a lot of people out there just want to have sex with absolutely everything. I can empathize with that. So like,
Aren't you?
I'm like, I get it. But is there no way that we can treat these programs with some nuance and be like, yes, this is part of human behavior, but let's teach people how to treat people with just a bit of respect.
Wouldn't that be lovely? Wouldn't that just be a treat? It really would. I don't think we've got any chance of that happening any day soon.
Because casual sex, I've done an episode about casual sex and I'm like, it's completely fine, but just because it's casual or just because you're not committing doesn't give you the opportunity to treat people like shit. And if we are, you know, displaying that it's okay all over the TV, all over social media, then people will think, well, if they can do it, so can I. We've normalized toxic behavior and then everyone gets annoyed that all we do is talk about toxic behavior.
I know. But that's all we're surrounded by. These kids are watching Love Island at like 12 years old. They're growing up with it.
Yeah.
And that is the norm. So that's fine. That, you know, that's totally okay with them because they see that people are living their lives like that and then they're coming out and they're making money from it.
How have you found dating post the show? If you've done much of it, you're like, I actually hate, you're like, I hate everyone.
Yeah, no, I haven't dated. I didn't want to before the show came out anyway, because I didn't want to get into something
and then be exposed to it
and have to explain everything.
Sure.
I didn't think that was fair on someone. So I didn't. I did go on a few dates with someone last year, like just after the show. And I remember going in it with my walls right up here. I was like, yeah, I'm protecting myself here. And he was a lovely guy, but there was something that wasn't quite clicking for me. But I thought the more time I spend with him, it is growing. And then he basically was like, how do I put this? He said, listen, this weekend, why don't you come over on Saturday? We'd only been out twice. He said, come over on Saturday and you can stay the night and blah, blah. And I said, all of that sounds lovely, but I'm not quite ready yet to sleep with you, which is fair enough. We'd only been out twice, you know, I just wasn't ready. I wasn't there. He went absolutely ballistic at me. And he said that he was too old to play games. And I was like, I'm not playing games. I'm really enjoying getting to know you. I said, I'll come over at the weekend.
In fact, you were absolutely not playing a game. You were being transparent.
I was being so transparent. I said to him from day one, like, I'm not rushing anything. I want to get to know you. And I was everything I did, I was communicating. But he went mad at me. And he said, he goes, I don't want to be friend zoned. I was like, we've been out twice. I was like, I've kissed you. I'm not friend zoning you. He was like, well, I'm not saying we have to have sex. Why don't you stay the night? I was like, so hang on a minute. If I stay the night in the same bed as you and nothing happens, the next morning, are you going to be okay about that? Because I would then think I was friend zoning you. He's like, what's wrong if we have sex anyway? I was like, there you go. So you would expect it. I was like, but I'm telling you I'm not ready. And that is okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't fancy you. I've told you I fancy you, but I'm not ready for that yet. And that is okay. And he just went mad. And I was like, and I turned around and I went, do you know what? This has just shown me that I don't think you're right for me. I was like, I appreciate your time, but I think this is where we call it a day. And I would never have done that before. I probably would have bent. And the thing I said to him, it's so ironic though, because if I'd have come over and we had a good time and it was organic and we were drinking and having some food, I might as well have stayed the night.
Yeah, but it was because it was almost forced upon you.
Yeah. And I just walked away from it. And I felt so empowered and I felt so strong. And I've never felt like that before. And I was like, yes, I made the right decision there. I stood for what I believe in and I walked away. And I thank the show for that I did that. I haven't been on any dates since. So if there's anyone out there that wants to take me out, I love sushi and I love wine. So let's go.
Do you feel like ready to date again? You're probably in the healthiest version of yourself.
Yeah, I do feel ready. I feel very, because I'm definitely at that point where I'm like, yeah, know what I want. And I feel confident within myself. I feel good about myself, you know, for the first time. I'm actually looking at myself and going, yeah, you're worth it. You are seriously worth being loved.
Yeah.
And I've never felt that way before.
I love that.
That's really sad to think that, but I genuinely look at myself and go, yeah, like you bring shit tons to the table, mate. So yeah, go get what you deserve.
You're at your sexual peak, babe.
Bring it on then. For your listeners to take me out for sushi and wine. Choose to go. Come on.
I've got no time for people putting the pressure on.
No. You've got to be, when you're ready, when you know, and you're ready for it, you're ready for it.
Were you nervous to have sex? I presume there weren't cameras in the bedroom.
There's no cameras watching, no, thank God. No secret cameras.
But were you nervous to have sex on the show? Or did it feel like private in those moments?
No, it felt private and it just felt right.
Okay.
Yeah, it felt good. We just so connected at those times.
Because someone has said, was sex with Mike worth it? I don't even really know what they mean by that question.
Was he well endowed for a 6'7"?
I'd like to hope that is not what they're asking, because I can't get into the size conversation today.
No, we're not going to get into the size conversation. But no, the sex was great. Like, I had no complaints. And I would never would. But it was, yeah, we connected in all forms.
I've had a sillier question sent in, which is, people love a fuck, marry, kill, don't they?
I love these. Go on.
Fuck, marry, kill, Matt, Dan, Lloyd. But there's 2 Lloyds.
There's 2 Lloyds.
So that maybe you go both ways, because it might change it.
Okay, fuck, marry, kill. So I would, if we're talking DJ Lloyd, Danika's Lloyd.
He's dead.
I'd kill Lloyd. I'd fuck Dan and marry Matt.
Okay.
If it's nice Lloyd, this gets a bit more complicated because I love Matt and Lloyd, but I'd kill Dan. I'd fuck Lloyd and marry Matt.
So Matt's a winner all round. Congrats, Matt. It actually, I guess, was interesting to see the way the men were affected when they were being chosen, because I think we're almost, as I've said earlier already, used to a society thinking that it's in a man's place of power to choose a woman. It was interesting to see also the men waiting to be chosen.
Yeah.
Because I think, to be fair, Matt was an emotional participant. And I do think that is a positive thing for other men, because obviously, apparently, woman to woman is a fucking shit show in terms of reaction. But I would like to think for any men watching that it's a positive thing for them to see another man really care about a girl, which FYI is okay.
Absolutely.
And be her and be vulnerable and be honest about that, rather than go like, that kind of toxic masculinity that men are taught of just being like, no, mate, I'm fine. Don't fucking care about her anyway.
Lloyd, Matt and Jack. There was no toxic masculinity amongst any of them.
Mm-hmm.
Saw some beautiful moments actually when Matt was struggling and Jack was there and he was supporting him and he was talking him through it. And it was the same with Lloyd, with Matt as well. They never sat there and went, oh, mate, get over it. There was none of that. It was sitting down, talking to them and making sure he was okay, making sure their mate was all right. It was so, so beautiful. 3 completely different guys wore their hearts on their sleeves with each other and they talked about everything. And it was beautiful.
Well, hopefully that is a positive thing that other people can see and think it's okay and it's good and it's safe for men to have those connections with each other, because I think that's really the problem, is a lot of men, a lot of penis owners think that it's not safe to be vulnerable like that and to have those connections with other people, because they've been taught it's not okay and it's not, it's not acceptable to be vulnerable in that way. So hopefully, although apparently the women all hate each other's guts, if men can see those connections being okay and allow themselves to be more vulnerable, it also will then in turn allow women to be more vulnerable, and then men will start to understand it. And this is what I mean when I say I want us all to start working together. So when men can see those connections with each other and see those safe spaces, and that's when we can all start opening up conversations on how to move forward with dating, with sex, with relationships in a way that's just more open and transparent and respectful of each other. Because whatever someone wants from something is okay. It's just how they handle it that's where things get problematic, I think.
Be honest, be communicative, be honest about who you are and what you want.
Yeah.
Makes everything so much easier.
Last question. I don't know who this person is, and maybe they're about to go on one, because they have said, what advice would you give to someone who is considering applying for a reality TV dating show? You're like, don't do it.
Don't do it. If it's Love Triangle, I will have no sympathy for you when you go on there and you cry every single episode, okay?
If you're invited to be on Love Match...
Don't. No, I would say go in knowing, yeah, you can wear your heart on your sleeve, but remember it's for entertainment. Don't go in there thinking it was going to be your happy ever after.
There we go. Before we wrap up, a couple of little sex questions. So number one is, what is your biggest ick?
My sexual ick would be, I don't actually like it when straight away they're like asking me, is that nice? Is that good? Is that good? Like straight away.
Okay.
It's getting deep, yeah. But you know when it's like you haven't even got your knickers off yet.
So one time I was hooking up with someone, and they I felt like they were trying to have sex with me in a way that they thought would make me fall for them. Like they'd watched too many rom-coms and been like, this is what the guy does to make the girl fall for them, because it was the way he held my face.
That would be another one for me.
And you know what? If it had felt genuine, if whatever someone's sexual taste is whatever their taste is, and that's up for you and your sexual partners to discuss and find out what you are into and what your sex language is. As much as we've all got love languages, we've all got a sex language. Some of us are more vanilla, some of us are more kinky and all of that. But, you know, I think if it had felt genuine, I'd have been like, oh, he's a love maker. It just didn't feel sincere.
It was rehearsed.
I don't like insincere sex where people are doing this. Is why this whole podcast is based on the statement, a collaboration, not a performance. Because I'm like, well, who is this for? What are you doing? And next question is, what is your biggest non-sexual turn on?
Non-sexual turn on.
Like if someone loves fucking cleaning the kitchen and you're like, oh, that's pretty fucking hot, actually. Do you know what I mean?
This is really, really sad. But actually, if someone holds the door open for me and just looks me in the eye with like a little twinkle, I'm like, oh, lovely. Little twitch.
You get a little flutter.
A little old school. But I'm just like, oh, because it's almost saying like, I'll hold the door open for you, but I am going to give you a little slap on the arse in a minute. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I get that.
I like that.
I like that one. I don't think that's sad at all. I think that's cute because I like that it's really specific.
Yeah.
Describe your sexual personality in 3 words.
Sweaty, sketty summer.
That is going to be my sexual personality.
Sweaty, loud.
I love that it's sweaty. It's the first one.
I know. Yes. Oh, sweaty, loud.
Okay, so we're going with sweaty, loud. What was the last one?
Sweaty, loud, vibrational.
Vibrational. Like we're getting a toy involved.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Love that. And I have to ask this one because I did this one with my best friends and their answers really devastated me. Would you rather give up oral sex or sweet, delicious cheese?
Sweet, delicious cheese.
Thank you.
Any day of the week. However, if you'd have said to me, would you either give up oral sex or Cadbury's dairy milk, we might have a discussion on our hands.
I'm like absolutely astounded that there's food groups that people will choose over, or because both of them chose cheese.
No, they didn't.
Both of them, and I didn't expect that to be the answer. So I was speechless. And they both said that oral sex is negotiable, but sweet, delicious cheese is not. But a dairy milk.
Yeah, if it's a big one, like a family size one, not like a little Freddo or anything, just, like massive size. Yeah, that might be a conversation to have. Put the two together, now you're talking.
And lastly, is there anything on your sexual bucket list?
It could sound really bad, but I feel like I've ticked off quite a few of mine.
Sound bad. Let's get rid of that shame.
No,
I think it sounds really good.
No shame. That's what happens when you're single throughout most of your 30s and you can go and experience things. Do you know, actually, on my bucket list, I've always wanted to just go to one of these sex parties to see what everyone's going on about, because it just sounds so visually like exciting. Just there's so much going on and you don't know where
stimulating.
And I think that is just it would be like having that first experience again of something.
Yeah.
So for me, that would probably be up there.
Well, do you know what's gorgeous? I can make that happen for you.
Oh my God.
We'll be ticking it off. We'll tick it off your sexual bucket list.
Let's go.
We're going to become much closer as friends. I took one of my very best friends to the one I went to last Sunday, and we're closer for it. I'm going to delve into that topic another day.
Amazing. Well, I will listen out for that one.
But listen, Kelly, thank you so much for coming and talking to me today, and for giving everyone an insight of what it's like to be part of a public dating scenario. Thank you for being willing to be so open again and vulnerable about your experience.
Thank you for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure. And I really hope that your listeners enjoy it, and hopefully they get to see a different side of Kelly, I guess, than what they've seen on TV. But like, at least I haven't cried on this one. I mean, give it seconds, I might. It's been an absolute pleasure, Peach. It's adorable to see you. And it's just been lovely. Thank you.
So anyone listening, if you haven't checked out Love Triangle, go and check it out on 4OD. But again, Kelly, you've been amazing. Love you. Mwah.
No shame ever.
No shame ever.
Friends, lovers, listeners, thank you so much for listening today. And I hope that you enjoyed my conversation with the gorgeous Kelly Michelle Gray. I mean, how can you not love her? What an absolute fucking babe. But also what a disappointing turn of events, especially I think to learn that we as women, we as vulva owners are still so heavily not supporting each other in this space. Because I will always fight for equality between the sexes so that we all have the same right to do what we want, who we want, whenever we want, that we own our bodies, our sexuality in a shame, guilt-free way. But it's very hard to fight for that equality and dismissal of the double standard that we've lived through since the dawn of time when we are fighting against each other. So I'm going to need to see some more solidarity amongst the vulva owner community, because if we call each other bitches and whores, it just gives other people the right to call us bitches and whores. We've got to stop treating each other in a way that we don't want to be treated by men and penis owners. I'm going to need that to stop. And it was so disappointing to hear that that is still so prevalent today. And it's never going to completely go. And I recognize that. But surely we want to empower each other. And if you want to drag another woman or vulva owner down for her sexual energy, for the way she wants to present herself sexually, I'd like you to take a moment to ask yourself why it bothers you. If you are bothered by someone else's sexual endeavors, I want to know why. Because I will keep trying to create a space where we try to understand each other.
so that we can work together to create a better space, a safer space for us all to express ourselves sexually in the way that we really desire. But often, I have to admit, I'm out here saying, men, penis owners, I'm going to need you to do a bit better. But today I have to say, women, vulva owners, I'm going to need you to do a bit better. Let's all keep working towards feeling confident and empowered in ourselves so that we don't have to drag another person down just because they don't behave in a way that we maybe might. Anyway, I think that's enough ranting from me for this moment. But thank you again for listening. A huge thank you to Kelly for being willing to come on and speak about her experience so vulnerably and openly. I will be back very soon with a new episode of Sex on the Peach. It's now Pride Month. It's fucking Pride Month. We are here. We are queer. We are thriving. So let's have some conversations to educate the homophobes. But for now, thanks for coming.
Thank you for tuning in to Sex on the Peach today, and I hope that you enjoyed this week's episode. You can find and follow me on Instagram, YouTube and TikTok at Sex on the Peach Cast, and you can also get in touch with me at sexonthepeachcast@gmail.com. Please do continue to like, share, subscribe, rate and review wherever you listen to your podcasts, and I'll see you next week. Love.